I write to untangle my reality, make sense of the people who flow through my life, and shine light on where my next step might be. And with this prompt of school days, I was reminded of this one experience I still have not been able to unravel. Maybe you can help. You see, in high school, most of my friends were guys. Looking back now, I think I had come to disdain the frilly, superficial, high-pitched banter that I associated with femininity. I had not yet found the power of the feminine, only the limitations of it. And so I usually managed to find one solid girlfriend who I connected with and relied on. The rest of my buddies were generally the goofy guys from my honors classes. They were smart, sarcastic, and quirky. And I enjoyed the fact that we were not easily confined in any of the usual array of cliques one would find at a school. I relished the autonomy it granted me to breathe freely away from much pressure from outside influence. I could recreate myself every day if I wanted to. I knew my funky little gang would always find space for me. They saw me through my thin leather tie phase and the bolo tie phase, my Miami Vice sports jackets and my Guess jeans, as well as the slanted bi-level haircut and even the dreaded perm. We went camping together, slept on my friend's roof watching Monty Python reruns, filled the back of my little Mazda pickup with water, and drove our mobile swimming pool around town splashing people at red lights. Had dough wars after a friend scored a bunch past expiration from his job at Domino's, and made a Super 8 movie of the dough that overtook our town down at the railroad tracks. I remember the joy of ice days when we would slowly gather forces as one friend would walk to the closest friend's house, then to the next and the next, until we all ended up at Ethan's house on the cul-de-sac at the top of a steep hill. We would slide down on cookie sheets, often ending up smushed under parked cars or rolling off in fits of hysterical laughter, and then huddle around cups of hot cocoa as our hands thawed. I also remember the day Hayden showed up at my doorstep in a full wetsuit because he had heard our old pool out back needed cleaning. And I remember our tearful farewell party at DFW Airport when Boris, our sweet exchange student from Berlin, was the first to break ranks of our close-knit group. I'd gotten so comfy with my little posse that I was completely thrown one day, senior year, when I found out some kid from the debate team had somehow convinced all my buddies to start what struck me as a rather questionable group. Thinking they were being funny, they decided to call it the Brotherhood, whose mere name to this day still makes me queasy. They made up ridiculous handshakes and did that weird chest bump thing that I've never understood. Them being mostly intellectual types, it was strange for me to watch them mimic the very things they had previously ridiculed, become the thing they had most hated. Whatever their reasoning, it royally pissed me off. It was as if I no longer knew them. One Saturday, I was feeling rather feisty and bored while they played another guys-only soccer game, and then were headed over to the Brotherhood breakfast at the IHOP. For some strange reason, I decided to balance out this new macho vibe with a little feminine juju, and placed a few freshly bought maxi pads on their windshields. I went home feeling a little silly, but yet somehow slightly avenged, and then studied AP Bio until I fell asleep at the kitchen table. The next morning, I woke up at the break of dawn to go to my early morning swim practice, having completely forgotten about my previous day's annoyance, to find actual human shit smeared across my truck with a belittling note from the Brotherhood. Disgusted and stunned, I hosed down my truck in the twilight with hot tears streaming down my face. In that moment, years of friendship were shattered. My inferior worth in their eyes was suddenly revealed to me, and the image was forever carved into my retina, and its pungent smell still stings my nose. The idea that they found this filth as equal retribution for a clean sanitary napkin playfully stuck to their window had jammed the circuits in my brain. Was this their idea of a male counterpart to maxi pads? Shit? The implications were unfathomable and my mind reeled. I couldn't help but wonder if these guys I once considered my longtime friends and confidants had actually stood on my truck and dropped their pants to take a dump in some sort of fraternal bonding ritual. Or had they scooped it out of the toilet and transported it here? I wasn't sure which was worse. Were they trying to put me in my place? What madness had taken over their minds? Did they not know me at all? Something hardened in me that day, and I silently seethed as my mom reprimanded me for having caused such an embarrassing scene in front of our house and scolded me for having brought this shame upon myself because of my rebellious nature. She lectured me on how I should make amends before I lost all my friends. Instead, I steeled myself for a long, lonesome journey because I would never back down. I lost all respect for them and would never forget them. I didn't understand what shift in the universe had just occurred or why, but a strange blend of humiliation, heartache, and anger forever transformed me. Flash forward to my freshman year at Wesleyan, freshly indoctrinated into my new world, when a surprise package arrived from home. It was from Brian Tokiyama, one of the guys who had been kind of on the fringes of our group in high school, and one of the few who had not taken part in the Brotherhood. I read his brief, cryptic note and then found myself unwrapping a copy of Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Is this another prank? Was he poking fun of me? Did he really go out of his way after all this time to twist the knife a little deeper? I could feel the old heat rising in my face. After initially slamming it down, I did manage to cool off a bit and brace myself before I cautiously opened it to the first few pages and started to read. My mind ignited. It was brilliant. Filled with quick wit and pointed barbs, someone understood me. I wasn't alone. That day, Brian gave me more than a book. He gave my heartache and frustration words, context, and history. He placed me in a struggle larger than me, and he lent me the strength of a big sister stretching out her hand through time. My own sex, I hope, will excuse me if I treat them like rational creatures instead of flattering their fascinating graces and viewing them as if they were in a state of perpetual childhood, unable to stand alone. I wish to persuade women to endeavor to acquire strength both of mind and body, and to convince them that the soft phrases susceptibility of heart, delicacy of sentiment, and refinement of taste are almost synonymous with epithets of weakness. And that those beings who are only the objects of pity and that kind of love which has been termed its sister will soon become objects of contempt. Mary Wollstonecraft, 1792. That day was the day I truly became a woman and consciously, proudly took my place on an amazing journey that women have been traveling for centuries. Yes, stumbling across landmines, both large and small, on our path to enter and outer liberation, but there are guardians, guides, and angels hidden all around us if we look closely. However, we must be eternally alert and wise, because sometimes your friends can be your worst enemies, and a practical stranger, your best ally.